Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and Smallville Rewind. One of my new favorite things to do is rewatch Smallville, and now we are on the episode Shimmer. Shimmer is one of those episodes that is kind of wild because I don't remember hardly anything about this episode. I mean, maybe a couple of small things here and there came back to me as I was watching, but for the most part, this is one of those lost episodes that's kind of crazy. And what makes this rewatch so much fun because sometimes it feels like I'm watching an episode for the very first time. So at the beginning, we see this character Troy, who I thought would play much more of a part throughout the episode, but no, he's just here at the beginning, being a complete dick and kind of bully to this girl Amy, who's sitting there writing in her journal. He snatches the journal away from her, and he's like, "Oh, are you writing love letters to Lex Luthor?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Well, sure, she's a high school girl, but maybe she knows Lex from the papers. If Lex is some playboy, young-ish dude who's in the papers, or like maybe she reads about him. Maybe she keeps up with him. No, you hear this explanation that this girl lives in the Lex mansion, the Luthor mansion. And I'm like, what? What do you mean she lives in the mansion? So you find out that her mother works as the help for Lex in the mansion. She helps clean and probably keep things organized. I know the mansion is big. Sometimes it's easy to forget how big the mansion is because we only ever see the one room that Lex is always in at his desk, but it is a mansion after all. So it's not like I'm surprised that he has people doing this. And I guess it's not too far-fetched to think that the help would be staying there or living there. I mean, Alfred lives with Bruce Wayne, right? So yeah, okay, fine. They live there, but it was so odd to see that this woman who works for Lex has her two kids. It's not just the daughter, it's the son as well. They're just living there. I mean, if I was Lex, I'd be a lot more weary. I'd be a lot more creeped out or concerned having high school age kids living at his place because you never know what's going on. I mean, he should definitely have a better security system with cameras and special locks. Anybody can just walk in and out of his mansion, apparently. We all know how many times Clark does it. And the Troy, let's get back to Troy, the bully. So after he was being a dick to this Amy girl, teasing her about the whole Lex obsession, he goes into the boys' locker room. One of his shoes raises up, and if I was the Troy kid, I'd be like, holy shit, I'd be freaking out a lot more than what he was just doing. He was just sort of looking at it and then looking around as if one of his friends was pulling a prank on him. What prank could somebody pull off to make your shoes and your weight thing or whatever he had levitate? So I was trying to figure out, okay, is this somebody with telekinesis? Is this somebody with kryptonite that has powers that's doing this? Or is it a ghost? Are we going to have our crossover of Smallville and Supernatural? That would be fun. Yeah, when Troy is talking about how he thinks somebody or something, an invisible person attacked him, usually that should sound crazy. Usually that should be a red flag of okay, he's crazy. But because Smallville is Smallville, it's only the first season, but we've already had countless accounts of crazy, weird stuff going on. I think Chloe has more than enough proof for her wall of weird. Principal Kwong, I think she can write some stories now. So, yeah, an invisible man is on the loose, and I like the premise of an invisible man. It's obviously a concept that's been around for a while, but for some reason I don't first think of Invisible Man. I think of that movie Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon because he was creepy as fuck. So Lana is having relationship problems with Whitney. You see at the coffee shop, our favorite place, Clark and Chloe witness Lana arguing with Whitney because Whitney keeps bailing on her. Whitney keeps, oh, something came up, something's going on. Sorry, Lana, I can't be there for you for this blood drive that she's running. So Clark sees this and kind of thinks to himself, huh, okay, I maybe can take advantage of that. Even when Lana asks Clark to get involved himself, he says, sure, but of course he can't give blood himself because his blood is not human, so that's a red flag. He's having to come up with excuses to avoid that portion of it. He does offer to help Lana run the blood drive, though. I like that Chloe even called him out for it, like, oh yeah, sure, I'm sure Lana running the blood drive had nothing to do with it. Even Clark's parents, Martha, calls him out on the fact that you're only volunteering because Lana's the one running it. We see this Amy character. It's the first time we're seeing her in the mansion. It's so odd to me that like they introduced this family living in the Luther mansion because like you could have had this set up. I guess it's the disadvantage of having the schedule that the WB shows had where because everything's all over the place, they couldn't have this family or this character, Amy specifically, be in 2 or 3 episodes before this so that we could get a cool payoff to that later on. Obviously, if this was a show being written today, it would only be like 8 to 10 episodes, and they probably would do a better job of having breadcrumbs beforehand. So you see that she's giving Lex and Victoria. Yes, Victoria is still here. One thing that is consistent from the previous episode that Victoria is still around. I do like that, the continuity. Amy is obviously jealous of Victoria being around, Lex's presence, staying at the place. And so she purposely spills the drinks all over Victoria's dress. I like that Victoria not only gets pissed, but she tells Lex, you gotta get rid of this fucking girl. She's obviously in love with you. She's obviously going to be a problem, and we can't really have that. I like that Lex just says, oh, no, it's fine. It's just a crush. Don't worry about it. So when I mentioned that the Kents were talking to Clark about the whole blood drive and Lana thing, they mentioned the whole, hey, you're trying to get with Lana again. I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised in a good way, that Clark's response was, if Whitney's not going to treat Lana well, then he doesn't deserve her. I said, oh, shit, Clark Kent coming out with the attitude, with the spunk, with the chutzpah of like, I can treat her better than how her current boyfriend treats her, and she deserves to be treated better, goddammit. This was a side of Clark that I had not seen up until this point, and it was a little refreshing, to be honest. Even when Clark goes to Lex and sort of says that, like, hey, I'm going to actually shoot my shot at Lana this time, I think even Lex appreciated that. Lex like that. And we see Clark visit Lex in the mansion, and he's talking to him about all this stuff. He walks in this room, and he finds Victoria on Lex's computer, going through Lex's files. Super suspicious. Obviously, Victoria didn't even do a good job of hiding her suspicious nature, caught in the act. She just looked at Clark, didn't say hi, didn't say hello, didn't try to look casual. She just looked like she got caught doing something she wasn't supposed to do. Then that's when a bunch of creepy stuff starts happening in the mansion. Honestly, Clark being there with Lex and seeing all of the stuff move off the desk, how the noises going on, the door just shaking and the white light, like there's no denying that, at least you would think, supernatural stuff is going on. What other explanation? They go into the room and they see that it's just vandalized with all stuff written all over the walls and whatnot. Lionel shows up and talks to Lex and says to him, Lex, you're being played. You're a fool with this Victoria girl, and she's clearly here to distract you from the business. And I like this, because even though Lex initially seemed like he knew what Victoria's game was, or her plan was, it did seem like Lex was getting caught up in her hotness, and he just was sort of running around with her, doing all these things, and I thought Lionel actually had a point. And also, it's always great to see John Glover in any Smallville episode, so that was clearly a plus. We see Amy, who finds Victoria by the door, and it's this awkward scene of Amy going like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to, and then as she goes to walk away, it's this terrible ADR of Amy saying, "You don't deserve him," talking about Lex, and I'm like, okay, this is really forcing it. This is really rough. Clark is talking to Lana. He finally confesses about, oh yeah, I don't like needles. That's why I can't give the blood. She seems cool with it. And Clark surprisingly says something that once again took me by surprise, where I think she mentions having issues with Whitney. And I mean, if they're just friends at this point, Lana's just confiding in Clark of her issues. But Clark says, I don't want to talk about Whitney. And if you want to pay me back for helping you with the blood drive, you're not going to bring up Whitney either. And Lana says, all right, fair enough. And I'm like, holy shit, okay, that's weird. And then the two of them are talking and talking more and more. And then they go to kiss. Clark and Lana almost kiss. This shocked me. This is one of those things that I did not remember them almost kissing this soon or this early into the season. I just kind of had a whirlwind of like, is this a dream? Is this really happening right now? Lana's aunt Nell shows up, of course, cock blocking, messing up the mood. And it was also mentioned beforehand. Clark mentioned that Lana's aunt used to date Jonathan Kent. Huh? Was that talked about earlier? Because that was also like, I don't remember that being a situation. Is that ever addressed later on at some point? Again, I guess my memory is just not as great as I thought it was because I don't remember this. And Clark invites Lana back at his barn tomorrow to watch the sunset. He is throwing down his game, man. I am super impressed because especially Lana accepts. It's kind of a date. And we see Clark in the hallway at school. He sees Whitney talking to a teacher, and Whitney drops his papers. Clark goes to help him, but Whitney just doesn't even say anything. He just walks away. Clark uses his x-ray, which I like that he's using his x-ray vision a lot, especially in this episode. He uses his x-ray vision in Whitney's bag and sees prescription to a drug in there. And so I was like, okay, I don't remember what's going on with Whitney. I don't know if he's on drugs. I don't know if he's selling drugs. Like, I didn't remember at all. And Clark definitely felt a certain way about it. He did some research and found out that the drugs were for heart issues. It's a heart medication. Even when Clark was talking to Lex about it, Lex mentions he knows the drug because it's the same medication his mother was on before she died. And they don't talk a lot about Lex's mother. And so I like that conversation. I like Lex even telling Clark about the significance of the watch that his mother gave him because Lex was looking for the watch. Of course, this Amy girl, this stalker chick, stole the watch. In fact, she even is wearing it. There's a weird scene when Clark and Lex are at the coffee shop. Where else? There's no other place to hang out, I guess. It's funny because Clark says to Lex that, like, okay, I just found out something about Whitney, that his father's sick, and that's what the heart stuff is for. And so Clark is talking to Lex and saying, man, I don't know what to do about this because I was pursuing Lana. Things were going well. But now that I know that Whitney's dealing with some personal stuff and that's why he's not talking to Lana, I feel like a dick. I feel like I'm taking advantage. And I love that Lex says, if it was me, I would still go for it. Because fuck it. That's what I love about Lex. And let's be real, 99% of us would also still go for it because it's Lana fucking Lang. The difference, though, is that, and this is why Clark Kent, how he's portrayed by Tom Welling and the writers on Smallville, is that he really is the best of us. He really is like the best version that all of us would probably one day hope to be, because even Lex says to Clark, but that's why you're special, Clark, because you're not going to pursue it. Like, I already know how you are. So then Amy shows up, and Clark, again, X-ray vision, can see that Amy is wearing a watch. And I don't know if he can tell it's the same watch that Lex was talking about, but it's a watch. And so Clark says something to Lex about it. They go to Amy's room in the mansion, because she lives in the mansion, mind you. and they find her shrine where she has like cut out pictures of Lex, stuff from newspapers, even a cutout picture of him as a kid when he had the red hair. Super creepy, super ultra mega creepy. And they find the watch in this shrine area. So I'm confused on like, wait, so was she wearing the watch that she stole, or was she just wearing a watch, like a different watch? And that made Clark think that she might have his watch. I don't know. Maybe that is as simple as that. So of course, Lex says to Amy's mother, like, you gotta get the fuck out of here. Okay, he doesn't say it in that tone, but he says it's best if you guys leave. There's even a moment where when they're packing their stuff and they're about to leave, Amy does turn to Lex and say, you know, I just wanted to be close to you. I wasn't trying to be this creepy about it. The biggest part of this whole reason also why Lex wanted them gone that I forgot to mention was that Victoria was about to take a bath. And so, of course, you know, she's undressing and whatnot. It's WB, so hey, you gotta give the horny teenage kid something. And as she's in the bath, somebody tries to drown her. Somebody invisible tries to drown her. Luckily, Clark just so happened to be visiting once again. He heard this, zoomed upstairs, and saved Victoria's life. I, for 2 seconds, thought she died. Because I don't remember a lot about the Victoria character. Like, I remember her existing, but I don't remember what ends up happening to her. So for a second, I was like, oh shit, she died. No, Clark saved her, and so also Lex thinks that Amy had something to do with that, so that's why he's getting rid of her. Come to find out that it was actually the Invisible Man, the Hollow Man, wasn't Amy, it was her brother. Whatever the fuck. Jeff? Was that his name? The whole point is that he's invisible to everybody, like in general, that it was easy for him to just be invisible. And so he attacks Lex after the other family leaves. He has Lex, I think, tied up. He's going to torture him. He's going through his villain monologue of like, I'm doing this because of the way you treated my sister. You didn't treat her well. You kicked her out of the house. You didn't let her have her love that she had for you. And I love this moment. This goes to show how deranged and crazy and nonsensical this Jeff guy is, because Lex says, well, Jeff, the kind of love that your sister wants would put me in jail. I'm not sure if you're aware, but she's underage. Like, I couldn't go after her even if I wanted to. I love that response. It makes total sense. It's something logically that I'm glad Lex said, because what the fuck? What did her brother want Lex to do? Did he want him to be R. Kelly? Did he want him to be Drake, allegedly? It was bizarre. Clark and Chloe figure out that Amy was not the invisible person because of her blood, yada yada. And this is a moment too when Clark puts together that, oh, it must be the brother. He tells Chloe he has to leave because Chloe was at his barn. And so Clark leaves, and Chloe has this reaction of like, God damn it, I came all the way here. I just got here. I was probably hoping to spend time and hang out with Clark for a little bit. She just had this reaction of her face of like, God damn it. It's just subtle. I thought Allison Mack was great there. Speaking of the barn, I am all over the place. There was a scene where after Clark finds out about Whitney and his father, Lana shows up to the barn to watch the sunset with him. They made a date, and she's there, and Lana is so into this. Like, she is ready. She is DTF. Well, okay. I don't know if she was actually down to fuck, but she was definitely down to kiss. Okay? She even says, like, hey, there was something that you were trying to tell me back there at my house. And Clark says, yeah, but if I do it, it's going to cause issues and problems. And your aunt came, and Lana goes, well, my aunt's not here now, god damn it. And she gets close to him, and I'm like, oh my god, they're going to kiss. This is wild. How the hell is Clark going to turn this down? And Clark says, you know, Lana, I really think you should talk to Whitney. And I was like, don't. Again, look. I say this, however, Clark obviously did do the right thing. Clark is a stand-up guy. Clark is a man that I would love to aspire to be like. I like that he says to Lana, Whitney needs you more than I think he even realizes. And even Lana's like, why are you doing this? And Clark says something interesting when he goes, well, if I was your boyfriend and if you were in Whitney's barn, basically the roles reversed, I would hope somebody would do this for me. You know? And I'm like, wow, that's actually a great way to put it. Nobody else would do it, sadly, but I did like the way that he said that. So jumping forward to where before Clark goes to save Lex, there's this whole exchange where the invisible guy, Jeff, is explaining, overly explaining. I mean, for somebody who is quiet and invisible, he just doesn't shut the fuck up here. Talking about how he found this kryptonite oil and he put it on himself, and that's how he gets invisible. Blah 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 blah. I guess that's just exposition for the fans to understand what the hell was going on, because otherwise we wouldn't know what was going on. Clark is able to easily knock him out. There's a cool effect of paint falling on to him invisible. I thought that looked really cool. And then the episode ends with Clark back in his barn. He's watching through the telescope, Whitney talking to Lana and them hugging. So Clark successfully saved their relationship at the expense of his own feelings. So this was a good episode. I mean, the main plot might have been weird and all over the place, but I think the side stuff with Clark, Lana, Whitney, and some of Chloe, and just Lex and his performances, more of Lex is always great. I think they're, once again, Smallville is just one of those deals where you're going to have some great episodes, and then you're going to have episodes where maybe the main plot isn't the best thing ever, but you're going to have stuff in there that makes the episodes good enough. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Shimmer? Did you like it as well? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!